Appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, well, thank you very much. Can everybody hear me pretty good? I know Bob's liking this because normally I wear a headset and I'm all over the place up here, so he's got me captive now. We're going to set up, I think they're going to set up, I had a remote down here. Okay. Now, I normally don't do a PowerPoint. I go right into my speech, okay? But there's been a couple of issues, and I'm going to talk to you about those. How many of you, raise your hands, it's okay. How many of you came tonight expecting to hear from Senator Mike Lee from Utah? Thank goodness. Because I can't tell you how many speeches I go to and people walk up afterwards and go, Senator Lee, it's a pleasure. It's great to hear from you. And I go, not that guy. You know, I spent 20 years in the Navy and I did a lot of things, and I'm going to show them to you up here. I get people will come up to me and they'll, because I was stationed at Camp Pendleton for half my career, and they'll introduce me as a retired Marine. No, I'm Navy. Okay? Then I'll get guys who say, well, Mike's a retired fighter pilot. No, I flew hovercraft. They only go 6 feet in the air, okay? We're not doing a lot of dogfighting 6 feet in the air. So, you know, I thought I'd bring some pictures because there's a lot of confusion about what a hovercraft is. And I'm going to talk just briefly about who I am and where I come from and how I got to being here with you tonight speaking. And I promise after the slideshow I'm going to tie all this in. Let me see here if I can get it to switch. There we go. My first ship, as soon as I entered the Navy in 1975, was the USS America, CV-66. Now, I'm not going to tell you how old I am, but I'm really starting to feel old because recently they made it an offshore reef, which really makes me, I used to laugh at those guys talk about that. Now I'm sitting back going, they did what? So that was my first ship. Now on that ship I ended up going to Lebanon twice. You might remember when we had all the trouble in Lebanon, we had to go over and evacuate American citizens. I did that on board the USS America. Let's see, did I go? Well, I'm going all over the place here. Okay, I need to go back. Okay. We go to the next slide. Okay, USS Barber County was my second ship. Kind of a unique looking ship. You can see how close it is to the shore. Now the inside of that ship is hollow. The bow ramp goes down. That's what those arms are for. It puts a little bridge down on the beach. The ship would actually come in and beach, put an anchor out in the back, and we would take marine vehicles and stuff and run off onto the beach. And that's how we got vehicles ashore. Next slide, please. Then I went and I became a prison guard at the Naval Correctional Center, San Diego. I was licensed by the U.S. Bureau of Prisons in Washington in jail operations and jail management. Now you might say, not a big deal, they're military guys. Well, let me just tell you, we had a lot of guys in there for murder, armed robbery, child molesting, and let me just reassure you, these are the guys who've been trained to kill people. As a matter of fact, we had one of the top hitmen in the country was a teenage boy from here in Texas. That's how he made his summer money. Next slide, please. USS Anchorage, my third ship. This is an LSD. It's a dock landing ship. Now, the inside of it is also hollow. So what used to happen is we'd flood that well deck, they'd fill ballast tanks, it would sink down, and we'd bring boats and stuff like that into the back, marine vehicles, and then we would launch them from the back. The whole back of the ship folds open. Then, right before, now I have to tell you again, the last two ships I just showed you also have been decommissioned. So, there goes that age thing again. They started facilitating this one for the hovercraft. Towards the front, you can see the long tube-looking things. I believe I can use this for that. Right here, these are phalanx systems on the side. That's kind of a Gatling gun system, so if the enemy shot a missile at you, it would shoot an incredible amount of rounds at that missile to stop it from hitting the ship. It would blow it up quite a distance away from the ship. Now, there used to be gun mounts here and gun mounts there, 3-inch 50 gun mounts that shot cannon rounds about this tall. And I used to be a mount captain on that as well. Now, the Navy is very unique. You do a lot of jobs. I don't know about the Army, I know guys are infantrymen or they work in a motor pool or something. In the Navy, yeah, you have a rating, but you have collateral duties. As a young petty officer, an E5, which is just unheard of. How many Navy guys we have in here? Any? Okay, one guy. God bless you. Thanks for your support. I would stand watch right up here on this bridge as a conning officer, which is not something an enlisted guy would do. I did it as a young E5. I went up, told my captain, I'd really like to learn how to do that. And so I was the guy that put the binoculars around my neck, and I would operate the ship. Con it is what it's called, all over the world. I'm the guy standing there saying, right stand rudder, all ahead 2/3, and blah, 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 blah. I worked DSET team in there, which was, I taught people damage control. We had a main space fire on this ship. Now, I'm pointing here at the hull because this is significant for a very important reason. How bad do you think, how dangerous you think a fire on board ship is? I mean, there's no place to run. But where do you think to carry all that fuel? Right here in the walls. And let me just tell you also that most of these ships carry enough fuel to go around the world 4 to 5 times. How much fuel do you think an aircraft carrier uses? Let me give you an idea. The USS America, we started keeping a tally one time, and we figured out with those 5,000 sailors on there, they spend $1 million a day when they're in port, okay? We would consume about 40,000 pounds of vegetables a month, 20,000 pounds of meat a month, 600,000 cups of coffee a month, and if we were going and had full steam, now we were moving along, not from a dead stop, we averaged 6 inches to the gallon. So don't complain the next time you go to the fuel pump. Next slide, please. Then I became a recruit company commander. You can see this handsome devil right here in the middle. I became a recruit company commander. I would train recruits like a drill instructor in the Marine Corps or something else. One of the other things I did while I was training recruits, because you'd get a company of recruits, you'd take them through training, through boot camp. It's a very difficult thing to do. I can tell you, one of the toughest things that I've done in my naval career was to train recruits. You get a bunch of young men who get off the bus, they're missing home, but these are kids who have goals. Not only do they want something out of life, they want to serve their country. And I can't tell you how amazing these young people are. They don't complain, and let me tell you, my nickname in boot camp was the Terminator. My wife will tell you. I beat them up. And I beat them up bad. Boot camp was not play day. It's not study hall at school. And so these guys, I mean, hey, I'm going to be honest with you. I've closed all the windows in San Diego in the summer, turned the showers on, get as much steam as I could in there, and I'd make them do push-ups till they threw up. And if they got any throw up on my floor, my deck, they were in big trouble. Big trouble. But that's what it takes. Because you know what? We're going to send your kids into combat one day. Now, some people will sit down and say, well, it's the Navy. Let me assure you of something. Long before anybody else gets in harm's way, the Navy is there. Long before. Long before the Army, long before the Air Force, not to insult you guys. The Navy's there. And we send troops ashore. Now, yes, most are not combatants. They are on the ship. Everybody on the ship is a combatant. You have to know something. When you have these kids, they may be cooks. They may be supply petty officers where they're down there just stocking up supplies. They may be a yeoman who does the typing. But let me tell you what happens. They're all trained to fight fires. They're all trained to fight flooding, damage control. I know more about firefighting than any fireman you know. Because the day you enter boot camp, you start firefighting training, and you never stop until you go home at retirement. And let me tell you the other thing that happens. That guy stirring grits this morning will sit there and serve grits, and then they may call him away. They'll sound the word for whatever his team is called. He'll muster down on the decks down there. He'll get with a boat crew, and he will put on his tactical gear, get an M16, he'll get in the boat, and he'll go over and board a pirate ship. Did you know that your young sailors are out there fighting pirates? Pirates, as we speak. It's an incredible thing when you think about it. Then they go right back to the ship, and he goes back to baking biscuits and stirring grits again. But they are amazing. They are heroes. They really are. I love that you got everybody to recognize the veterans. I normally do that. But there's somebody you missed. All of you parents who give up your sons and daughters and you let them go. Because that's a difficult thing to do. You give them a wonderful upbringing and then you send them out to serve our country, knowing that one day they're going to go into harm's way in defense of the Constitution of the United States. And that is something you should be proud of. Next slide, please. One of the other things I did while I was training recruits, I was stationed with a unit called Water Survival and Physical Training Unit. And that was several of us as instructors stationed with a small group of SEALs there. We would do the SEAL screening. We would give everybody in the Navy has to qualify as a third-class swimmer. So we'd get them up there, and they have to jump off a platform, surface, float for so long, swim the length of the pool and back, which is it's a long Olympic-sized pool, and then they qualify a third-class swimmer. If they don't, they have so many tries before they get sent home. Also, what we would do is we would teach survival at sea. Ships sink. And when they sink, it's generally because somebody shot at them. And all that fuel we talked about is out in the water. So you have to abandon the ship. You're in the burning water. Water burns. All that fuel on the surface, you've got burning water. We teach them how to abandon the ship, get into that burning fuel, to swim under it, to be able to surface properly, get a breath of air, go back down, and try swimming to safety again. That's what we would teach them to do. Then, remember, you're in the middle of the ocean. There's no place to go. So we taught them to take things like their shirts and their pants and how to use those for flotation devices. If I had been able to teach just a couple of classes in Katrina, down in New Orleans during Katrina, most of the people who had drowned down there would have never drowned. Because I could have taught them to use something as simple as a pair of blue jeans to float to China and back. Next slide, please. Typically, when you talk about amphibious warfare, you see this. You remember the movie Saving Private Ryan. The boats come in, the ramp goes down, the Marines run off. Well, the enemy knows because of the way that those boats come in and the way the ocean is in the shoreline, we can only make 7% of the world's beaches. So if you remember the movie Saving Private Ryan, you know why, when those men came in, why so many were lost. The enemy knew they were there. Where else are you going to go? It's a tough job. And do you know at Normandy, during Normandy, the Americans got Utah and Omaha Beach. Do you know how we got those two beaches? Because we volunteered for them. The two most difficult beaches. But that's the American way. That's who we are. That's the American spirit. We don't do anything because it's easy. If we did, we wouldn't be Americans. We'd still be British. We do things because they're hard and because people tell us they're impossible. Next slide, please. You notice that half those guys are knee-deep in water. The troops would come in, they'd run off. They're a sitting target. You remember what it's like to run through the water. It's almost impossible. A lot of times what happened, too, is they'd hit a sandbar. And they think they're ashore. You got to remember, an amphibious landing is the most violent act that one human can do to another. You can talk all the combat you want with SEAL Team, Marine Recon, Green Beret. But let me tell you, I can tell you right now, every one of them will tell you they'll trade an amphibious landing. They'll trade that for what they do anytime. Anytime. Because you're going to have ships sitting out over the horizon 30 miles out, those battleships. And they're shooting projectiles in that are 3,000, 2,000 pounds. And they're leaving craters 30 feet across.